Hello everyone, in this tutorial what I'll be covering is PHP operators, and the first set of operators that I'm going to go over is arithmetic operators, and these operators are just your standard operators such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and a few others that you may not be familiar with such as the modulus, increment, and decrement. So let's start with some of the basic operators. Let's say, for example, I had a variable called value1, which equaled 5, or it contained the value 5. And then I had value1 equals value1 plus 5. And then I echoed out that information. I said addition, value, and then I said value1. And then just to make it easier to read, I put a line break in there, ended with a semicolon. Now we should know that it's just taking the value or the numerical value 5 and adding it to the value that's inside variable 1, which is 5, and storing that information back into the same variable. And it's going to output the value 10. So let me just go ahead and save this file as operators.php. And then I'm just going to go ahead and load that into my browser. Type in localhost, the PHP basics, and operators.php. And as we can see, it displays the value 10. Very straightforward. Again, subtraction, multiplication, and division work similar. So nothing really complicated here. So let's just go ahead and get to the others that you may not be familiar with, such as the modulus. Now the modulus, the way you use that, the symbol for that is the percent sign. All right, so let's say we had the variable value 2 and it contained the numerical value 7. And then I said value 2 equaled value, forgot my dollar sign, value 2 modulus 2. And I get into what that does in a second. And then I'm going to echo out that information. I'm going to say modulus value 2, and then put another line break, end it with a semicolon. Now, what the modulus does, it acts very similar to division. They kind of act hand in hand here. What's happening here is the number that's been stored in value 2 is the remainder of what's left over when 7 is divided by 2. So we know that 2 goes into 7 3 times, but we have a remainder of 1 left over. So that's the number that's been stored in value 2. So it's very similar to division, but it's just taking the number that's left over. So that should be not too complicated to remember. Now, let's get into the others, such as increment. And let's say, for example, I had value 3. It contained the numerical value 5. And then I said value 3 increment with 2 plus signs. And then I'm going to echo out that information. I'm going to say increment value 3. Put another line break, end it with a semicolon. Now, what's happening here with the increment is very simple. All it's doing is incrementing the value that's in the variable value 3 by 1. So since it contained the value 5, when I increment it, now it's going to contain the value 6. So if it contained 100, when I increment it, it's going to contain the value 101. So let me just go ahead and save this. Remember that the modulus should display 1 for value 2, and for the increment, we should have the value 6 be displayed. So let me just refresh my browser. And as you can see, we have 1 and 6. And the last arithmetic operator that I'm going to go over here is decrement. And it should be very simple or straightforward what this is going to do. I'm going to put the value 100 in value 4. And the way that you decrement a variable is with 2 minus signs. And then again, I echo out that information. Value 4 with the line break, end it with a semicolon. Save it, refresh it in my browser. And again, when we decrement 100, we decrement it by 1. So we get the value 99 stored in value 4. Very simple. Now, the next set of operators that we're going to talk about are the assignment operators. All right, so the first assignment operator that I'm going to discuss is the equal sign. So let's say we had a variable called a, and the variable a contained the numerical value 6, and then we had the variable b, and it contained the variable 4. And then we said the variable a is assigned the variable or assign the value that's inside the variable b. So it should be obvious what's happening here. A is now going to contain the value that's in the variable b, which is 4. So if I echoed out that information, I said a now contains a, and end it with a semicolon, save it, refresh my browser, and now it's 4. Very simple. Now, the other assignment operators we have, let's say, for example, I said the variable a plus or equals the variable b. What that is doing is, or what that is the same as, is a, or the variable a, $a equals, or it's assigned the variable a plus the variable b. So it's just a short way of writing it. I normally don't do this, but this is a shorter way to do it. But once you get used to seeing it this way, it should be very easy to spot that. So again, that's the same as just writing a equals a plus b. And obviously we probably have, as you probably have guessed, a minus and equals b. I'm having a hard time typing here, but in a way that's the same thing as a equals a minus b. And you can do this with the division and the multiplication and the modulus and other assignment operators as well. So moving on, let's go to the comparison operators. So let's say that I create two variables, a variable called 1. It's going to contain the numerical value 1, and I write a variable called 2, and it's also going to contain the numerical value 2. All right, so what I should also mention with comparison operators is you can only have two conditions or two results, and those two results are true or false. These are the only two conditions that you can have. So let's get into the first comparison operator, and that is equal to operator. And the way that you write the is equal to operator is with two equal signs. So let's say, for example, I had 1 is equal to 2. What's going to happen for this condition is it's going to return false, because we know that 1 is not equal to 2, or we know that the value that's inside the variable 1 is 1 and the value that's in the variable 2 is 2, and we evaluate that, we know that 1 is not equal to 2. So let's say, for example, I had 1 is equal to the numerical value 1. That is going to return true, because 1, or the value that's in the variable 1 is equal to this numerical value 1. Now we also have not equal to. The way that you write that is with an exclamation mark and the equal sign. Let me lowercase that. We have not equal to. Let's say that's not equal to 2. When we say that, that's going to return true, because 1 is not equal to 2. And we can also write not equal to using the less than sign and the greater than sign, and write 2 there. And again, that's going to return true. And again, this is the way you write is not equal to. So let me just go ahead and put that in comments up here. And it's, for some reason, I'm having a hard time turning caps back on and off. Is not equal to. And that's written with the exclamation mark and an equal sign. Then we also have is greater than, or let's say is greater than. Let me just spell that out. Is greater than. And that's written with the sign that we should be familiar with. So if I said 1 is greater than 2, that's going to return false, because 1 is not greater than 2. But if I wrote 1 is less than 2, it's going to return true, because 1 is less than 2. And again, this is going to make more sense when we dive into the next tutorial, which is going to explain if statements. So we also have is greater than or equal to, or is less than or equal to. Same with is greater than or I should say less than. Again, just writing this here as I want to give you something to go back and reference if you need to. So let me write that there, and let's put a less than up here. So again, if I had 1 is greater than or equal to 2, it's going to return false, because 1 is not greater than or equal to 1. And again, this should be stuff you learn way back in elementary school. But anyway, let me just write this out. Is 1 less than or greater than 2? That's going to return true. So again, these are your comparison operators. Most of these should be very familiar with you, except how to actually write these. So again, the ones that may be a little bit different is the equal to. You always have to remember to include 2 equal signs, and the is not equal to. And let me just write that up here like that for that symbol. So the next set of operators that we're going to get into is the logical operators. All right, so the first operator that we're going to get into is the AND operator. And the AND operator is written with 2 ampersand symbols. So if I wrote the following statement, or the condition 1 is greater than 0 and 2 is greater than the variable 1, that's going to return true. So let's take a look at what happened here. We have the value 1, and we evaluate it, and we say, is 1 greater than 0? It is. So this statement, or this part of it, is true. So I'm just going to write below it. We have true already, and then we have this and is 2 greater than 1, which is true. So that's going to return true. So in order for this whole statement, or this whole condition here, to return true, both of these 2 situations have to be true. So for an and, let me just go ahead and write out here. We can have true, ampersand, true. It's going to return true. That's what we just had here. And I'm spelling true all wrong here. But anyway, we can also have true and false. That's going to return false. And again, having issues with the spelling and trying to think what to say next. But anyway, we can have false and true. Again, that's going to return false. And finally, we can have false and false. It's going to return false. So in order for the AND operator to return a true, we must have both situations or both conditions return true. If either one of those are false, we're going to get false as a result. All right, so the next operator that we have is the OR operator, and that's written with 2 vertical bars. And let's say again we have 1 is less than 0, and we say or 2 is greater than 1. That's going to return true. Now the reason that's going to return true is because even though 1 is not less than 0, we have this other condition over here that says 2 is greater than 1, which is true. For the OR operator, only one of these conditions have to be true. Only one has to be true. So let me just go ahead and write that out for you as well. We can have false or true, and the result is going to be true because only one of these has to be true. And let's say we have false or false. That's going to return false because neither one of those are true. And we can have obviously true or false, and that's going to return true. And let me correct this up here. And lastly, we can have true or true, and obviously that's going to return true. Now we also have a not operator, and that's written with an exclamation mark.